Hello everybody and welcome back to the Sassy Hearing channel. My name is Sarah and today we're going to talk about different styles of hearing aids. Whether you're getting hearing aids for the first time or whether you're replacing your existing hearing aids, one of the choices that you'll need to make is what style of hearing aid should you get. Now that raises the question, well, what is the best style of hearing aid? The short answer to this is that there is no one best style. One of the reasons why there's different styles of hearing aids is because we need a variety of styles in order to cater for a variety of needs. So while there's no one best style of hearing aid, there might be one that's more suited to you. So let's have a look at the different styles of hearing aids. Let's start with receiver-in-canal hearing aids. These hearing aids are a relatively new form factor or style of hearing aid, but they're also one of the most popular. One of the reasons that they're very popular is because they're suited to a wide variety of hearing losses. These hearing aids have a receiver or speaker that sits in the ear, and then the rest of the electronics are packaged up and sit behind the ear. The two bits are joined by a thin wire. The bit that goes in the ear can be different strengths depending on the needs of the person, which is partly how these cater for different types of hearing losses. Apart from being flexible in the types of hearing losses they're good for, these hearing aids are quite discreet. The thin wire joining the two parts is barely visible when you look at a person front on. One of the other advantages of these hearing aids is that having the microphones, which are on the bit that sits behind the ear, and the speaker or receiver in the ear means that they're separated a bit. This means that there is less likelihood of the hearing aid feeding back. Feedback occurs when the sound leaks out of the ear, gets picked back up by the microphones and goes round and around in a circle until you get a squealing sound. Now obviously we don't want the hearing aid squealing, so having some robustness against squealing is a good thing. And that robustness also allows us to have better amplification of the high frequencies, so we can turn the high frequencies up a bit more, but still also allow the bit that goes in the ear to be what we call ventilated, which means that it allows the person's voice to come out of their ears so that they don't feel blocked up when they're talking. So that means that these hearing aids are quite good at giving a good quality sound. However, they're not for everybody. If you have very waxy ears, then that wax can get into the receiver quite regularly and break it. Now, one of the advantages of these hearing aids is that if that receiver does break, it can usually be replaced in the clinic. And the receivers and the wires are a point of vulnerability of these devices. So being able to swap that over in the clinic is good. But if your ears are very waxy and they're constantly blocked and you're constantly having to go to your clinic to get the receiver changed, then that's not an ideal situation because you're off the air during those times and it's a bit of a pain to need to go in all the time to get it changed. Also, you need to have enough space in your ear canal for the receiver to fit in your ear. If you have very narrow or very bendy ear canals, it might not be possible to get that receiver sitting in a nice spot to give you a good quality sound. Some people also find having two parts, the part that goes in the ear and the part that goes behind your ear, to be a little bit more cumbersome to manage than one where it's all in one. The final reason these hearing aids might not be appropriate for you is if you require a lot of power. So people with quite profound hearing losses sometimes just can't get enough power out of these particular devices and they need a different style of hearing aid. So if a receiver-in-canal hearing aid is not the best option for you, what are the other options? One of those is what we call the behind-the-ear hearing aid. So with this hearing aid, you have all of the electronics packaged up behind the ear, a plastic bit that goes in your ear, and the two parts are joined by a hollow tube. Now that hollow tube is a little bit less discreet than the wire that joins the receiver and the canal hearing aids. And the bit that goes behind your ear is a little bit bigger, in part because these hearing aids are often more powerful, but also because the receiver is also in that part that goes behind your ear. So they can be deemed not quite as discreet. Having said that, I used to wear a behind the ear hearing aid, and my clients used to sit in front of me with my hair up and not notice that I had it in. So less discreet, but still reasonably discreet. And they come in great colours these days. I had a purple one at one stage. So in terms of the advantages and disadvantages of behind the ear hearing aids, because there's no electronics in your ear, if the wax gets into the part that goes in your ear, that can be cleaned out quite easily. There's no damage to the electronics, and off you go. Also, it's quite simple to be able to borrow a hearing aid from your hearing care provider should the hearing aid need to go off for repair, because you've still got your bit that goes in your ear and it can be swapped out. The other thing about these hearing aids is that they're capable of putting out a lot of power in the power versions, which means that for people with really profound hearing losses, they can be quite a good option. However, some people do find that having the two parts, again, the bit that goes behind the ear and the part that goes in the ear, to be a little bit more cumbersome. And some people with really narrow spaces behind their ears can struggle to have enough space to comfortably fit all the electronics there. So we've talked about behind the ear hearing aids and receiver-in-the-canal hearing aids. What's our other option? The other option is what we call in-the-ear hearing aids. In-the-ear hearing aids come in a range of sizes, from an invisible-in-the-canal hearing aid to an in-the-ear hearing aid that fills up all of the ear at the other end. The two smallest ones of these are called invisible-in-canal, IICs, or completely-in-canal, CIC hearing aids. These hearing aids are very little. They fit very discreetly in the ear, so for someone who wants something that's not visible, these are a great option. However, being so small, they can be a little bit more difficult to manage. It can also be difficult sometimes to tell which one goes in which direction to put them in. Also, they can be a little bit more prone to wax getting into them because they sit deeply into the ear canal, and that can result in them having to be sent off for repair. There can also be some challenges in getting enough power out of these hearing aids without the risk of squealing and without needing to block up the ear canal so much that it makes your ears feel blocked and makes your voice feel like it's in your own head. So there are some drawbacks to this. And the other drawback is that you can't always fit all of the technology in the tiny little hearing aids. So sometimes you need to forego some of the technology in order to get that size. But for someone where size is important, they are an option. As we move along the spectrum and get to slightly bigger hearing aids that go completely sitting in the ear, we have the ITCs, the half shells and the full shells. As we move along that range, the hearing aid fills up more of the ear until the full shell, where it fills up all of the ear. Being a little bit bigger, these do have a bit more flexibility to fit the technology inside it and to even make them more powerful so that they can pack a fair amount of punch. These days they do come in rechargeable options, which is great if you're not good at managing small batteries. So there's a fair bit of versatility in these. However, as they all do, this one has some drawbacks as well. The drawbacks can be that if it does break, usually the entire unit needs to be sent off for repair. And it's difficult to borrow something to replace that while it's off being repaired. You'll need to have a different style of hearing aid temporarily. So that can be a disadvantage. It can also be a little bit tricky to get enough sound out of them without them squealing, and again get enough ventilation through them so that the person's own voice can escape out their ears to avoid their voice filling in their head. Some people do find these ones a little bit easier to manage though, particularly people who have arthritis in their fingers or their wrists or their elbows or their shoulders, because it's simply one piece. So that can be an advantage of these hearing aids, and some people just prefer the look of them as well. So there are different styles of hearing aids. Now, if that feels like a lot of information, don't panic. Your hearing care professional will be able to guide you as to what the best options are for you and why. It might be that you're best suited to a particular option, or it could be that there's multiple styles that you can choose from depending on your exact circumstances, including your hearing, your preferences, and your ear health and shape. I hope you found this useful. If you've enjoyed it, please press the like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to catch us next time. I'll see you again soon.